When it comes to quantum theory and quantum mechanics, there's an interesting story I just found. I'm going to talk about briefly, and then we'll discuss sort of where do we go from here. Basically, the article here talks about, it says, physicists bend atoms in impossible experiment. Entire atoms have been put through a classic quantum experiment for the first time, and the breakthrough could lead to better detectors for picking up gravitational waves that ripple across the universe. I'm a medical physicist by training. I work with X-rays and MRI. I work with CT, MRI, X-rays, nuclear medicine, physics to ensure that radiologists and cardiologists have what they need to read images well, as well as to keep the dose, to check the levels of radiation that are used in cath labs and making sure that they're where they need to be for regulatory requirements. So that's my background. I have a master's degree in medical physics and one in medical health physics. I took a year of a PhD in chemistry, and the main chemistry course I took in that year was physical chemistry. So I've hung out with physics a long time. My bachelor's was in chemistry. So let's talk about this discovery and where they trace it back to. Just briefly, it says that basically the technology can be improved. Detector technology is very important in general. In medical physics, we talk about we test detectors in things like mammography and in X-rays, where we're checking to make sure that the detectors are providing images at a high quality. So in 1927, physicist George Paget Thomson showed that electrons passing through a crystal would diffract, producing a distinctive pattern that occurs when a wave squeezes through a small opening and then bends its path, spreading outwards. In this case, the pattern was caused by the electrons passing through gaps in the crystal structure called a grating. This article comes from the New Scientist magazine. And what I found interesting is I quickly went back and was like, George Paget Thomson, that reminds me of the guy who discovered electrons, J.J. Thomson. Yes, it's the same family. J.J. Thomson, the father of George, right, discovered electrons in 1896. And George was born at Cambridge. Well, J.J. Thomson was at Cambridge, at the Cavendish Laboratory, by the way, which I visited in August. And it's amazing to see the legacy of James Clerk Maxwell, who started the Cavendish Laboratory, that gave us people like J.J. Thomson and other scientists like Ernest Rutherford. Okay, so if you've never been to the Cavendish Laboratory and you would like to go, send me an email, amos@amosthemathguy.com, because I would love to coordinate a team when I'm in London next time. We want to visit the Cavendish Laboratory, visit the London Museum, London British Museum, and then the Royal Institution where Michael Faraday was, who inspired some of the work of James Clerk Maxwell. So let's talk a little bit about George Paget Thomson. So, George Paget Thomson was born in Cambridge, England. So again, I'm talking about him because his work and description is part of why we're talking about this discovery today. But George Paget Thomson was born in Cambridge, England. He was the son of the physicist and Nobel laureate J.J. Thomson, and Rose Elizabeth Paget, daughter of George Edward Paget. Thomson went to the Peirce School in Cambridge before going on to read mathematics and physics at Trinity College, Cambridge. You know who else did maths at Trinity College, Cambridge? Sir Isaac Newton. I was at Trinity College in August of 2024, and the legacy of Trinity College, the number of Nobel Prize winners from Trinity College is quite impressive. And if you look in their dining hall, in the Great Hall of Trinity College, they have James Clerk Maxwell, they have Sir Isaac Newton, they have people like J.J. Thomson. So Trinity College has this legacy in maths and physics. So if you want to go to one of the best places in the world to study maths and physics, then go to Trinity College. They have a little courtyard, or well, not courtyard, but outside in front of the college, they have a little place where they call it like Newton's tree, trying to reimagine, this Newton's apple tree situation, which is a whole other video. But I also went to Newton's house at Woolsthorpe in England, where I saw this place where apparently the apple tree was. Interesting story. We can add that to our trip. Why not? But J.J. Thomson's son, George Paget, did amazing work. He lived in the time where quantum theory was booming. People like Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr and Ernest Rutherford. All these guys were around during this time, which, by the way, you find that a lot of these people were also philosophers, okay? They thought through things philosophically. One of the reasons why our scientists today cannot match some of the abilities of these people, or the way these people treated things, is that these people were willing to think about physics and philosophy at the same time, or they were open to it, right? They were not technically professional philosophers, but they were willing to philosophize. I feel like there's a restriction in academia in certain circles where you can't philosophize like people like Newton and Maxwell and these guys used to philosophize. We need our scientists to be like that. And that's part of my vision and goal. I want to raise the next generation of scientists, mathematicians, and thinkers who also know the history and philosophy of science, logic, and theology. Let's wrap up with his story. So he went to Trinity College until the outbreak of World War I in 1914. See why it's important to know history, because now you understand, World War I was 1914 to 1918. So you understand what might have happened with his time at Cambridge, because he was commissioned into the Queen's Royal West Surrey Regiment. After brief service in France, he transferred to the Royal Flying Corps in 1915 to undertake research on aerodynamics at the Royal Aircraft Establishment at Farnborough and elsewhere. He resigned his commission as a captain in 1920. After the war, he became a fellow at Cambridge and then moved to the University of Aberdeen in Scotland, which again, Scotland has a great heritage. James Clerk Maxwell was Scottish, and we can go on and on with some of the other people. Adam Smith was also Scottish. They have a heritage in the STEM fields and in theology as well. So he was jointly awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1937 for his work at Aberdeen in discovering the wave-like properties of the electron. The prize was shared with an American physicist, Clinton Davidson, who made the same discovery independently. And whereas Thomson's father, who won the 1904 Nobel Prize, had seen the electron as a particle, the son demonstrated that the electron could be diffracted like a wave. Father and son. This is crazy, right? We also have parents and daughter with the Curie family. Marie Curie and Pierre Curie's daughter won the Nobel Prize as well. But it's amazing to see father and son. One discovers it as a particle, one discovers it as a wave. This is crazy. This is just so cool. The father can influence the job that a son picks. It seems like that's a trend. I don't know the statistical data on this and research, but please feel free to leave that in the description section if you want, so we can see what is the influence of the father's job on a child. My joke is that the father's job can either inspire the child to want to go into that field, or it can inspire the child to run away from that field, right? There's some neurosurgeons' children who say, I don't want to be a neurosurgeon, right? Daddy was so busy. And I appreciate and salute neurosurgeons for what they do, but I'm just saying that it could cause some of their children to say, I don't want to do that, I want to do that instead. And I've seen that. My wife and I have 7 children, and I know some of them maybe want to go in my direction and some don't want to go in my direction, and that's fine. So our jobs can either propel the children to go into the things we do, or they can push them away from the thing, right? Because, I've been involved in business, for example, for years. And now I'm finally learning business, right? I'm finally, I'm in business school informally, watching lectures, interviewing people, because business is a skill that people need to learn. And so I've seen, one of my kids who's like, I don't want to do a business. That is, business can take your time. And so I just think that it's important to look at that question. So if you have data on that, I would love that. So that's the story of J.J. Thomson's son, who's part of the reason we're reading this article about waves and electrons behaving like waves, even though his father talked about them behaving like particles. There was another article from the New Scientist that says single atoms captured morphing into quantum waves in startling image. In the 1920s, Erwin Schrödinger wrote an equation. You can find more of people like Schrödinger here. Wrote an equation that predicts how particles turned waves should behave. Now, researchers are perfectly recreating those predictions in the lab. With AI, I think it's going to be a very interesting time in history. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see the amount of technological advancements in physics, especially. I'm excited to see this. I plan to do more studies in mathematical physics myself and in just further my education in that realm. And I'm excited to make connections for the young generation to see how the history of science affects us today. So stay tuned for more. I'm doing a series called 12 Men That Changed the World, and you'll be able to find it on our YouTube channel as well as short clips from our LinkedIn. And if you know anyone who needs to take the ACT or the SAT or needs to study mathematics from counting to calculus and beyond, feel free to reach out to me at amos@amosthemathguy.com, or you can go to amosthemathguy.com to sign up for any of our courses or programs. Look forward to raising the next generation of scientists. Take care, have a blessed day, and we'll talk more about waves and particles very soon.